Have you ever put on a mask before? What does a mask actually do? It covers up something that's underneath. And what if over the years we have consciously and unconsciously put these layers to protect ourselves from getting hurt? At Warriors and Queens, we truly believe that many of us over time, especially in our young childhood, we've experienced trauma, maybe some type of abuse, mental, emotional, sexual abuse. And each time we experience that, we put an energetic layer, if you will. We like to call it a mask here at Warriors and Queens that basically protects us from getting hurt. But also, what that mask does, it moves us away from our true home, from who God intended us to truly be, which is to be a person who is loved and gives love, to have freedom, joy, and happiness, and all the abundance in the world. But through our filters and our past traumas, these masks prevent us from truly experiencing love at the highest level. Now, if you can imagine in a relationship, now each partner brings their own mask to the relationship, and many times they don't even know who they truly are. So, what we'd like to share with you today in episode number 2 of the Warriors and Queens show is what are masks? How are they developed? But more importantly, how can you start removing some of the masks that might be controlling your relationship?
Boy, and I was trying to see through this mask and it was getting hot. And I was looking at life through that filter, through that mask. And so I couldn't think of a better way to share them with my own personal journey where I was born and I was actually a feminine girl with all my God given gifts and powers. And as I was a little girl and I started growing up, I realized my dad wasn't there. He wasn't. He divorced from my mom when I was very little, and my mom endured a lot of trauma and a lot of pain. So I heard her say things like, "Yvette, don't ever rely on a man. You can stand on your own. You can do great things. Never rely on a man, and a man is not a plan." And how many of you have heard that? And obviously, she cares so much about me. But it was around that time that I put on a masculine mask around me of strength, of nobody's ever going to hurt me. And as a matter of fact, I experienced some abuse that no child should endure at the age of 3. And as I went through my journey, I put on this protective layer, this protective armor, and nobody was ever going to hurt me again. And so then I grew up a little bit more, and I was in my kindergarten, and I saw that the girls had this cute little dresses and pigtails, and they were getting all the boys' attention. And I wasn't, because I was just like strong, girl that was not going to get hurt by anybody. And so I asked my mom, can you do my hair like little pigtails? And I would love to buy a dress like the girls at my school. And so she bought me this dress and gave me pigtails. And all of a sudden, I put on this feminine mask around me. And it was around the masculine protective mask. So think of my essence as a dot in the middle of the target. And then I put on a masculine mask. And then I put in a feminine mask. And as I started growing up, and my first kiss, and the boy, I really liked him. He was a boy from church, and just innocent love. And what happens? My cousin has a crush on him and he ends up kissing her. So, oh no, a woman hurt me. I don't like women. Women are not safe. Women are betrayers. And guess what? I put on this masculine mask. No woman will ever hurt me. And then things happen. I was bullied. I put in a further masculine mask around me, like nobody's ever going to hurt me. And then I started dating in college, and then I noticed the cute girls were getting the, sports guys. And so I became a cheerleader. I put on a feminine mask around me. So now I was like this burly girl inside, but this feminine girl outside with a cute outfit. And I started dating, the football player. But little by little, things would happen. Put on another mask, put on another mask until one day I meet the love of my life and I don't even know who I am. And I definitely don't know who he is.
And in the context of polarity, as Yvette shared, these masks are created, and the same thing happened for men and boys. When I grew up, I was born as with all my God-given gifts and nature and ways of being as a masculine little boy. And in growing up, my mother was a very strong woman. My father would be working so much, so I grew up hearing, "Don't be like your father. You got to be the nice guy." So I put on a feminine mask. And by the way, a mask could also be a protective coat of if you've ever experienced a trauma or an abuse, it could be a protective coat of anytime somebody maybe you feel like they're taking advantage of you or they say things in a certain tone, it may cause a trigger. And we call that poking the mask. And so for me, when I went to school, I had this feminine mask around my masculine core. And now all of a sudden I was friends with all the girls. But as I started to get older, because I was safe, I was the pleaser, I was the nice boy, I started noticing and I started wanting to have certain interactions with women that was more as I started to get attracted to them, and I realized that they were more attracted to the bad boys, the rough guys. And so I decided unconsciously to put on a masculine mask. And so I put on a masculine mask around these other masks. And eventually I went into high school and I had my first girlfriend at 16 years old. And she broke my heart. And I said, never again. I'm not going to trust. So I put on a feminine mask. And as I started to get older, all of these masks started to get created from different traumatic experiences. And most of this happens at the unconscious level. And so now you're in a relationship and your partner, you usually choose a partner that is going to trigger you more than anyone else. Because
Boy, do we know that.
because at Warriors and Queens, we believe that anytime you get triggered or anytime there's conflict, and conflict usually shows up as a trigger. And what is a trigger? A trigger is a response to a stimulus. A stimulus could trigger us to be angry, to be sad, to be jealous, to be protective, to feel like we're not good enough, to feel like we're not, to feel like we're getting taken advantage of. So anytime a trigger happens, we truly believe that it's God sending us a message, a revelation to expose an area of life that we are not yet free. So now imagine we're in this relationship, and most people are in a relationship with all these masks, and they don't even really know who they are. And in the beginning, usually everything is amazing. But after about 2 years, things start to get real and the masks start to get triggered. And what do most people do when they get triggered? They blame,
Mm,
they
mm,
judge,
mm,
they go
mm.
external. And instead of exploring what is really going on here. So, my friends, Dave and Yvette Ulloa here, we are the founders and creators of Warriors and Queens, where we empower people to have, to find, to create dream relationships.
And we are here to help you resolve conflicts, resolve traumas, and help you break through to the other side. That when you have a trigger or a trauma or a protective mechanism, that you no longer have to go and point at the partner or the person or your mother or your child, whoever is triggering you, that you find freedom in finding out what is the trigger here. How do I release it from my body, from my mind, from my soul, so that that trigger and that mask does not control me? Because if you don't do that, you're going to be living the mask way of life. You're going to have to look at life through that little boy that was wounded, through that little girl that was hurt. And I will tell you, it's uncomfortable.
So, what do we do when we get triggered? What do you do when you get triggered, especially from your partner? Well, there's four, we call it the four F's. And the four F's, sometimes we fight, sometimes we freeze, sometimes we flight. And that's the three that most people know. But there is another option. And that other option is to get curious. Now, some of you might say, well, Dave, that doesn't start with an F. No, but you're probably going to remember it because now you know the four F's. The fourth is actually get curious. And what does that look like? Well, whenever you get triggered, and we encourage you to start practicing this with your partner, if your partner triggers you, start to get curious and ask yourself a few questions. Why am I getting triggered? Why is this triggering me? Why What am I feeling right now? What emotion am I feeling that this experience or this moment or this person is triggering me? What is really triggering me? What emotion am I feeling that's triggering me? And when you start to get curious and ask those questions, what you'll tend to find out is what is real, what is happening in real time is not the source of your pain. It's not the source of your trigger. It's usually a mask that was created long ago that all God is saying is, I'm poking on that mask because there's an area of life that you are not currently free.
And so I will give a personal example. I used to have the mask of people taking advantage of me. And that was all rooted after I did the Warriors and Queens work. It was rooted in the one experience when I was 3, when a family member took advantage of me. And so I've had this protective mechanism of people are trying to take advantage of me. And so guess what? I would go to the grocery store, and one time the lady shortchanged me. All of a sudden, she hits my trigger, right, for my mask of protection. And I'm like, she's taking advantage of me. And my blood is boiling, and I'm getting so aggravated. And I'm like, I don't know if I should speak up or create a scene. This woman's taking advantage of me. And I just left. I didn't. I erupted into a volcano, but I chose not to make a scene because there was a long line. And as I am walking out the parking lot with all my masks getting triggered and all my anger, the lady comes out running. I am so sorry. I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. I've had such a bad day with my family. Here's your change back. And do you know how little I felt that day? How small? Because I was putting all this blame. Basically, she triggered my mask. Anybody else might have been like, oh, excuse me, you owe me 10 cents. But not me, because I had a mask related and she poked at my mask and I protected my mask almost with like a Sharpie. Like, this is my protective mechanism. You're not going to get through. And guess what happened? I felt like the biggest, I felt so stupid afterwards. Like, I can't believe, over a 10 cent, I triggered so much. And so that lady, I am grateful to her because she showed me an area of my life where I was not yet free.
Yeah. So the mass framework is an incredible framework that we've helped so many couples and singles and individuals around the world to help to identify and set themselves free, because a lot of chaos in relationships happens because we're constantly triggering each other's mask. And so what we truly believe is when you heal past unresolved trauma, then you can heal your relationship, because the opposite of that is constantly blaming or judging or putting the basically becoming the victim of what's really happening. And so forgiveness, love, compassion, and the first step is to be aware of what's really going on. And so it does take courage and a victory of the human spirit to learn and how to master, to let go of past unresolved trauma. And we've actually developed a very simple system that we teach in our Warriors and Queens Academy on how to let go of past unresolved trauma.
Yes, for over 15 years, what we did all our research and studied from the best, we realized there was a simple process and we named it BART, the Bless and Release Technique. We actually teach it to our students because that's their step to freedom. They don't need us to release their masks, they don't need us to release their triggers. We don't want you dependent on us. So at our Warriors and Queens Academy, we teach exactly the BART process so that when you get a trigger, you get curious,
Right.
haha, and you go, huh, I wonder why this person is triggering. I wonder why this situation, so that you don't give your power away, but you take your power back. You do the bless and release technique, and voila, you have a whole new slate. That's how we help you go from pain to freedom. So instead of you deciding that your partner is the bad person or that your partner is not doing their part or whatever, you realize that they're just triggering on an area of your life that you're not free yet.
That's right. And so the solution with the BART method, well, we want to leave you with this. We don't obviously have enough time to teach you on this Warriors and Queens episode. But for those that want to explore, we encourage you to find out more about the Warriors and Queens Academy. But the first step, as Yvette said, is to get curious and start asking the right questions. Because when you start asking the right questions, you take your power back, because these masks most of the time are unconsciously created. But even by asking the right question, when you illuminate the truth that there is a trigger, that there is a mask there, you start to uncover and you start to heal. And from that place, what we'd like to invite you to do is to let us know if you start getting triggered. We'd love to hear from you. What was triggering you? Did you ask the questions and did you get curious? Instead of blaming or judging your partner, did you come from a place of human spirit and say, why is this triggering me? What is the mask that I'm uncovered? And as you start to go down that rabbit hole, you'll be amazed that sometimes it actually has nothing to do with what you thought it may have to do with, but it's completely different. But when you heal that side of you and you start to remove the mask, the dream relationship that you've been searching for is on the other side of the mask. The other thing I'll share with you real quick is the deeper the trauma, the thicker the mask.
Mhm.
The deeper and the earlier the trauma that happened, in other words, between 0 to 7 years old as a child, many times it's a thick mask. And sometimes those thick masks can be blind spots for us, where we get so protective of our mask that sometimes people actually get angry when you poke at their mask. Sometimes they'll deny that there is a mask there, that there's no way, it's got to be you. You're the one that's the problem. You're the one that's the issue. But as you start to do the bless and release technique, you start to uncover the truth. And with the truth comes freedom.
Yeah, and as you get curious, and like Dave said, you step into what we call human spirit, which is when you respond to something with intelligence, with power, rather than your reactive mind, where all the chaos rather than your reactive mind where all the chaos happens. Most couples are in reactive nature all day, all night. And so we teach human spirit where there's choice, where there's energy from God, where you're making a decision from a place of power and not of reaction.
That's right. So, finally, friends, what we'd like to do, we hope you enjoyed this episode. We would greatly appreciate if you follow us on YouTube, on iTunes and Spotify. And also, we'd love to hear from you and give us a review of what impacted you most. What did you learn? What did you apply?
And we would also like to give you a free gift if you have not yet received it. We have a mini e-course that we created with so much love with some of the basics to have extraordinary relationships. Whether you are somebody that does not have your soulmate yet and you are yearning for that person, or maybe you believe they don't exist. They do. There are just certain patterns that you got to cut out so that the right person comes into your life, or whether you are married and you know you could have more in your relationship. Download our e-course, go to warriorsandqueen.com/3 steps. The number three, STEPS. Download it today. We have a PDF breaking down some of our most important, most encouraging course so that it can help you on your quest to having a better relationship.
We are Dave and Yvette Ulloa with Warriors and Queens, empowering dream
Dream
relationships,
relationships,
one
one
person
person
at
at
a
a
time.
time.
Thanks so much for joining Yvette and I. Our goal is to give you tools, mindset, and motivation to strengthen your most important relationship and experience vibrant intimacy.
Please take a moment to rate and review us. We would love to gift you our e-course at warriorsandqueens.com/3 steps.